So we've learned how to factor. We've learned how to solve. We've learned that if we want to see if our answers are correct, we check where the answers lie on the x-axis. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to maybe give you an answer, and you're going to decide how would you graph it, okay? So obviously we can look at decimals, and we'll do that in the beginning, but eventually we're going to get to the point where we don't need decimals, and we can just graph it ourselves. So, blah, 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 big word problem, you can read it later. I want to know, based on this graph, do you think it's this one, or this one? So we'll call this 1, this 2, and this 3. Which one do you think it is? Okay, so let's look. It's based on how many times it crosses the x-axis. Once, twice, 3 times. So it feels like it should be this one. But it's actually this one, okay? And what you're going to see, actually, it's none of them. It's none of them, shoot. It's actually going to be x minus 2 squared, x minus 3. So it's none of them. And you go, well, how do you know it's none of them? Well, if I graph them all, it wouldn't work, and for time, I'm not going to do that, but you can do that on Desmos. So I know that this is actually a degree 4 polynomial, even though it only has 3 zeros. Well, 3 of them are real. Let's look. 1, that's 1. 2, 3, 4. I know it's going to be x to the 4th. What you're going to learn is that when it goes through it, it's just there. When it goes through it, it's just there. But if it, instead of going through the 2, it bounces off the 2, that square will represent a bounce. If I was to graph this one just to kind of show you, 0, 2, 3. It's to the 3rd power, and it goes through. If you graph that, it would look like this. This one, if I was to graph it, it's at 0 and 2. But because it has a squared right here, watch this, it bounces, and it's going to look like that. If you don't believe me, you can graph it yourself. This one has 0 and 2. There's no bounce, so we just go like this. And that's something you're going to learn how to graph yourself. This is sometimes the hardest for people because it almost seems too arbitrary. Okay? All right. So what I did is I went on to Desmos and I graphed the first one. So I put in x minus 2, x plus 5, and let's look at it. So it told us we had a 0 and negative 5, which we know that because of this. It also told us we had a 0 of 2, which we know that because of this. And then so direction is up. So this right here, because it's positive, is telling you it's up. The degree. Now, the degree is, well, there's one x here, and since this is squared, you have an x and an x squared. It's actually x cubed, which means it's degree 3. Okay? So if I look at this, the lines. 1, let me lower this. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, the x-intercepts we figured out are 2 and negative 5. The y-intercept, if you look here, is 0, negative 50. Now, how would I know that? I could take 0, plug it in. So let me show my work. 0 minus 2, 0 plus 5 squared. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Sorry, let me make that a little bit bigger. And then 0 plus 5 is 5. Squared is 25, and 25 times negative 2 is negative 50. Okay? Now what they're going to be asking for is the end behavior. The end behavior is what happens at the end. So I'm going to rough sketch this, because I don't want to look at that graph anymore. And it's going to go something like this, which means it's degree 3. Hopefully you remember that from before. Okay? So what they're saying is, on the negative side, which means the left side, which way is it going? It's going down, negative infinity. On the right side, which is over here, it's going up, which is positive infinity. And they asked us to rough sketch it, so that would be 2, negative 5, negative 50. Touch, touch, touch. My pen's about to die, so I'm doing it in pencil. Okay, we know it starts down here. Now remember I talked about the bounce, so let me zoom it out a little bit. So if you see a squared, it means you're going to, I want you to be aware of that one. So look, here's -5. As soon as you get to -5, bounce. And then go through. Okay? So if you have a squared, that will be a bounce right through. And if I was to graph it on a number line, there's 2 and -5. Okay, with the 0 in the middle. All right? Okay, let's go to the next one. So I'll graph the next one in Desmos. Let me do that. Let me show my work. So let me get rid of that one. Let me show this one. And put y equals, so hold on. Okay. So I graphed the next one, this one, and I graphed it on here. That's something you can do yourself as well. Sorry, wrong way. Okay. Let me zoom it. Let me go back towards, oops, wrong way. X-axis. All right. If I see the x-axis, it crosses at -2. That's this. It crosses at 2. That's this. And it crosses at 3. That's this. And some of you go, what about the 2? We're trying to find where it crosses on the x-axis. The 2 doesn't have an x. Okay? So what's the direction? Well, remember what I said is if what's in front is positive, it's going to go up. So that's going to be up. The degree. Okay. Well, I have 3 zeros, and it goes 1, 2, 3. So that means that would be degree 3. I have one x, another x, and another x. X is x cubed, degree 3. What are the x-intercepts? Plus or minus 2 and 3. The y-intercept, 0, comma. So if I'm multiplying times 0, anything, I have to keep the 2. So I'm going to go 2 times 0 minus 2, 0 plus 2, 0 minus 3. -4, -8, 24. How do you know I'm right? There it is, 0, 24. Okay, so I'm going to rough sketch this. If it's x cubed, I see it starting down here, and it's going up there. Negative infinity means on the left. On the left, it's going down. On the right side, it's going up. So if I'm going to rough sketch this, I've got to put my intercepts. 2, -2, and 3. Remember we talked about before, a squared means it bounces? Well, I didn't have a squared, so I'm just going to go right through. Go right through. Oh, 24. Go right through. Go right through. Go right through. Is it exactly how it looks on here? No. That's why it's called rough sketch. Number line, 3, 2, -2. Okay? Oops, you didn't see that. Sorry. Next one. This one, I didn't factor it. So if you look here, this one isn't factored. So I could factor it myself. So I'm going to do that right now to remind you what to do. Because you need to know how to, you need to know how to factor. Okay. I pretend this is x squared. Do my cute little magic x. 2 numbers that multiply to get 20 and add to -21, or -20 and -1. X minus 20, x minus 1. But it's not really squared to the 4th. So that means that's x squared minus 1 and x squared minus 20. When I look here, this one reminds me of square root. So this would be x minus 1, x plus 1. I cannot square root this, so this is the answer in factored form. So I'm going to write this in factored form right here, just so you can see that. X squared minus 20, x minus 1, x plus 1. All right, direction. Direction is positive, so that's up. The degree, they told me right there, is 4. And some of you go, well, how did you know that if it was in factored form? 1x and 1x, that's 2. Plus another 2 makes 4. Now let's look at the graph. So let me get onto Desmos and show this. Okay. If you look, let me go down. It's at 1 and 2.331. Why isn't it the other one? Hold on, I got to pause it real quick and find my mistake. My mistake was that I never put the squared with the 21. Okay, let's try this again. There's my 1. There's my -1. There's 4472 and negative 4472. And some of you go, what? Well, let's go back to this x squared minus 20. If I set that equal to 0, this has to be second nature, by the way. It's okay if it isn't right this second, but it needs to come back. Add 20, square root, birthday cake. This goes on the outside. This goes on the inside, plus or minus x equals. And if you take the square root of 20 in your calculator, it's 4.472. Okay? So, with that being said, I now know my intercepts, plus or minus 2 rad 5, 1. Oh, I can write plus or minus 1. Let's do that. Okay. My y-intercept. Do you guys remember how to find the y-intercept in standard form? It's just the last value, but it only works in standard form. If you don't believe me, plug in 0, and you get 20. Okay? So now I'm going to graph this thing. It's x to the 4th. So when I saw it on the graph, so I'm going to just copy it. There was a 1, a negative 1, and a rad 20, 4.4, and a negative 4.4. When I looked at it, it looked like it was this, and then it hit at 20, and then like this and like this. Okay? Well, let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Degree 4, it matches up. There's also no squared when I factored it, so I'm not bouncing, I'm just going right through. You're going to eventually learn how to graph these yourself, because sometimes you don't know where to start. So remember, on the left side, which way is it going? Up. On the right side, which way is it going? Up. And that's what they wanted. If I'm going to graph this on the number line, you guys got that. Okay? So 1, negative 1, 4.4, negative 4.4. All right, next one, direction. We're doing a lot of them that are up. We're just starting right now, okay? So direction, up, it's positive. Degree. Okay, what's the degree? There's 1, 2, 3, squared, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Degree 5. The x-intercepts are 5, 1, negative 1, and negative 3. There's only 4 of them because this squared means that's going to be bouncing. The y-intercept means you plug in 0. So I'm going to go 0. 0 plus 3 squared is 9. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. If I'm going too fast, text me. It's fine. So that would be 545. Okay? So now, I know it's crossing at 1, negative 1, negative 3, and 5. Okay? I know that it starts down here, and you're just going to trust me right now, because it's taken too long to graph it. I'm going to come here, and I start from the bottom. Sometimes we start from the top, sometimes we start from the bottom. We'll learn that later, or maybe see if you figure out the pattern. Then I'm going to go right here. What do? Bounce, because it's the negative 3. Then go through. At the 1, go through. At the 5, go through. So everything else goes through. On the left side, it's down. On the right side, it's up. And then I got my number line, 5, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 3. Okay?